Hello, friends. My name is Steve Guttenberg, and I am the Audiophiliac. And today's show is part one of a two-part interview with Devin Turnbull of OJAS. Now, he's a speaker designer, an electronics designer, super interesting guy. And anyway, I've done this before with him, but the difference is that this time he has a new retail store here in New York City. It's called the OJAS Listening Room at USM. And I dropped by to, first of all, listen and experience this space, which is incredibly big and spacious for New York City. And it's gorgeous. It's just a beautiful space. And the room, there's a lot of acoustic treatment, and the room sounds fantastic. So anyway, this is part one of the interview. And in a couple of days, I will post part two, which is, this is a tour of the store. And in part two, it'll just be a sit-down interview with Devin. But anyway, let's get to it. Let's hear what Devin has to say. Oh, this is one of your turntables, right?
Yeah, we've been making these. The first one that I made was in the Listen show that opened here in New York. The first version of this system that we've come up with in collaboration with Linear Tube Audio.
Oh, really?
Yeah, LTA, they make fantastic linear power supplies. And I knew I wanted to develop a linear power supply that would work with the new Technics flat rotor motors. This is the same motor and platter that you have in your 1200G. Mm-hmm. And so I devised a way of kind of harvesting the motor and platter from the turntable. I designed a bracket that lets you mount the motor into a wooden plinth the same way we kind of have a culture of wood plinthing mostly idler drive turntables like the Garards and Lenkos and the like. So I thought it'd be a really cool thing to kind of contribute to that culture of custom turntable building, working with a turntable motor that is a very iconic professional audio device from kind of my generation. I grew up in the Technics 1200 era. So this is something that I thought was a lot of fun, and I think has been a fun thing to kind of contribute to that world. So,
and this cartridge?
The cartridge is the Ortofon Cadenza Bronze. It's on a vintage Orsonic head shell. And the tone arm is a Groove Master, which is made in Denmark. And it's a beautiful banana-shaped 12-inch arm.
12-inch. Oh wait, and the other arm?
The other arm is a vintage Ortofon RMA. So the series of arms is RM, and it's RMA because it can only run the A-type SPU shells.
Okay.
So don't put a SPU-G like the one that you have, the number one on there. Your overhang will be way off.
Catastrophic.
Catastrophically off. And then so this is the first part of the linear power supply for the turntable and has the controls on it. So this is where you start, stop, and change the speed. So yeah, I designed this enclosure, and then in collaboration with LTA, we came up with the way of rigging all these things up through this umbilical cord.
Nice. And that's the phono preamp?
This is the phono preamp. And we make this with a close friend, collaborator, personality in the audio world, Steve Berger. He and I kind of collaborated on this together. This also has a built-in moving coil step-up transformer. I have been using for a very long time a vintage Altec 4722 microphone transformer as a moving coil step-up. It's a popular thing in the sort of like vintage audio world. Japan, they've been using that as a moving coil step up for a really long time. I think Joseph of JE Labs also helped popularize the 4722 as a good moving coil step up transformer. I wanted to integrate that into the phono stage. The problem is the Altec 4722 transformers have become very expensive. And of course, I don't have like a secret source for them. I can't buy them wholesale. So I just have to buy them on eBay like everybody else. And so it's not something I can rely on for manufacturing these phono pre's and selling them. So another very popular, currently produced transformer for moving coil step up, made by Cinemag. And so what we have done here is we had Cinemag make us a bunch of their moving coil step up transformers, put them in these Mu-Metal cans on an octal base, and the pinout is the same as a 4722.
Nice.
So we're actually right now just got a bunch more of these transformers in. I'm designing just a simple enclosure, standalone device for the moving coil step up with the octal socket. So you could buy the box and you can buy it with the, Cinemag Ogis moving coil step up transformers. You could also, in theory, have any number of people wind you a custom transformer and put it on an octal base.
Huh.
I can imagine a world in which we develop other transformers specifically for cartridges and things like that. But this turns ratio is very popular for like the Denon 103 and also the Ortofon SPU. So yeah, that's what we have on there. So we usually ship these to customers with the Cinemag transformers, which sounds really great, and it doesn't have as vintagey of a sound. I think you could pretty accurately say that the 4722 sounds comparatively vintagey. The Cinemag transformer definitely sounds a little bit more kind of like dynamic high-end type of sound. So you can swap them out to taste.
That's nice. That's cool.
Um,
And last.
The line stage is a passive line stage that uses autoformer volume control. So this is a very simple but very carefully made, handmade. So it's got an input selector, and it has a volume control that uses a hand-wound autoformer wound by Dave Slagle in upstate New York, another friend of a lot of ours here in New York. So Dave winds the transformers that we use in these, the autoformers that we use in these, and it's a great sounding, really simple preamp solution.
And the other analog.
Yeah, Studer A810, 2-track kind of a studio mastering deck that we use for playback of old master tapes, master tape copies. I love tape for a lot of reasons, but one is kind of just the cultural aspect of it, to where it's become pretty easy to get records nowadays, between Discogs and reissues. But I kind of miss the culture of record collecting sometimes, to where like if you're looking for a particular kind of record, you kind of have to know the guy that knows how to get those things. And I think that that's one cool thing about getting access to master tapes. You kind of have to have an in. And they're also all about kind of provenance, because you can go on eBay and buy something that is called a 1/4-inch master tape, but without knowing the person you're buying it from, it's a huge amount of trust. You sometimes pay hundreds or more for these tapes, and sometimes they kind of sound too good to be true.
Right.
And
Sometimes they're made from a CD.
they probably are coming from a CD. Because yeah, I mean, can't get much better than that, right?
Yeah, perfect sound forever. And these are prototypes?
These, so this is another example of the Art Bookshelf speaker that we were listening to earlier, and it's a pretty popular thing we make. This, now, I'm gonna get blown up with people asking about these mini 15-cell horns. It's a prototype. It's something that we've been developing for a couple years. It's just their only way to really make this design is through 3D printing, and this type of 3D printing is pretty expensive. So it's not something that we're like offering to people yet. We do have an external horn modification that's very popular for the Art Bookshelf speaker. I don't know what the ultimate solution is for that, but
Something
people
you're
ask
working
me
on.
about this all the time.
Right. Well, in progress. We'll see how it happens.
Come check it out. Okay, that's
Yeah.
a plug for coming in here.
Yeah, I'd
You can
say.
come here, you can check it out. Maybe we'll play it for you. That's actually just really quickly, I think, to mention that. When I started my endless ramble in here, I said that we've been kind of struggling to figure out like exactly what we do here and how it works. So I think it would be worth kind of mentioning that, we're open 6 days a week here, but we have a very small team. And given the amount of like stuff you can buy in here, there's not a lot of like foot traffic. People aren't coming in here and spending hundreds or thousands of dollars all day long. So, we kind of have to run this place as an extension of our studio that we make custom equipment and small runs of things. So, the same, I guess, as most hi-fi stores, you can't really exist to entertain people all day long.
Right.
That kind of pains me because one of my motivations of getting into hi-fi was that kind of experience of going into a high-end audio store and kind of not being able to get any attention. And, as a foreigner, especially in Japan, you could wander into these like vintage showrooms or high-end boutiques and they really just want to impress you. They sit you down, they'll bring you a coffee and just play records for you until you leave. And I was an early motivator for me was like going into high-end showrooms and just not being able to have an experience. So we try to give that to people as much as possible. But what we've kind of said for now is on Saturdays from what time, Chance? 12 to 5. This is a theater. You can come here and just listen to music. We will have music playing. You're welcome to come and just hang out and listen to music as long as you want, within reason, on Saturdays. Monday to Friday, closed on Sundays. Monday to Friday, we're kind of by appointment only. If you're walking around Soho, wander in. Sometimes the door's open and we're listening to music and we'd love to have you have a seat, hang out. But, the caveat is sometimes we're very busy. Chances in the background here just working away. We have a lot of...
Like that? Is that what working looks like?
Yeah, that's him working.
Okay.
We have a lot of stuff that we do. And, and so unfortunately, maybe one day we'll grow to the point where we can just kind of run an experience all the time.
Well, best to call ahead.
Best to call ahead.
Monday
or
to Friday.
We don't have a phone.
Oh, you don't have a phone. Smoke signals.
Message ojus.support on Instagram. That's one way. That's probably the best way. Message ojus.support. And, if you have something specific that you're interested in experiencing, we'll try and set it up for you. And if you're just kind of looking for, I just want to come and hang out and listen to music, if you can come on Saturdays, we appreciate that.
What are these giant amplifiers?
What are these giant amplifiers? Do you know what this is?
I don't.
This is a very cool thing. This tube is the Western Electric 212. You've probably heard of the 211 tube.
Mm-hmm.
211 is the baby 212. Most people think of a 211 as being this extreme, huge triode, high-powered triode. The Western Electric 212 is the biggest triode that I'm aware of.
And it lights a room.
It has a thoriated tungsten filament, and it does actually kind of light up the room. However, these 212s suffered some catastrophic damage coming over from Japan. So actually, I'm going to Japan next month, and I know someone who's holding a pair of STC 4212s, which is the same tube, and I'm going to baby those things back here in my hand luggage, and we'll be able to listen to these amps.
Wow, that's great.
This is, stuff like this is kind of what motivates me to have a space like this. These things exist, for the most part, in very impossible to access places. So I just like to be able to share this stuff. But yeah, these amps belonged to a friend and mentor of mine in Japan, Koji Wakabayashi, who operated a kind of import-export audio business in Japan called Eiffel for a long time. Eiffel is out of business now, and Koji's kind of like retired from audio, but Koji had one of the biggest Western Electric collections of working Western Electric theater systems in the world, and he taught me a lot and inspired me a lot. We made amps together for a long time. These belonged to Koji, and now they belong to me.
Awesome. Well, it's great that they're here.
Yeah.
And here's a big speaker. They have big tubes.
Yeah, this is like a medium speaker in our world. But this is a fun speaker that we've made some. We made a small run of, and we have a few available still. But this is mostly based on, well, it's entirely, as most of my speakers are, based on like classic components. So the core of the speaker is the Altec type 12-inch mid-bass woofer ×2 in an MTM configuration with a cast aluminum horn that's based on, but not a replica of, the Western Electric 12027 horn that was used in the 757A studio monitor. That's a highly fetishized, collectible studio monitor from the 50s, I guess.
But this isn't a replica? This is the real thing?
This is not an original, and it's not a replica. It is inspired by.
Ah, okay. So it's new?
It's new, yeah. So we had gotten a bunch of these. They're made by they're designed by and manufactured by a horn designer that I work with. This one is not an exclusive Ogis product, but I work with this guy often, and we do make a bunch of, collaborate on a bunch of unique horns that are exclusive to Ogis. Particularly, I will share with you soon, we have a new series of horns based on a sort of the last great large-scale theater horn Altec made called the 329A, a giant large format 300 hertz horn. But it was the last horn Altec developed, and they only made it for 2 years, so it's very rare, but it had a lot of really cool features. So we've made 2 smaller versions for 1-inch drivers, and we're making speakers with those now. I'll share that with you soon, but
Okay.
I don't have any here.
All right.
And then it uses a classic JBL 2405 or 077 type super tweeter. This is a fun speaker. It's a unique combination of these components. Not aware of anyone else using a horn like this in an MTM.
But these are in people's homes, or just
Yeah.
for custom installations?
Yeah, I mean, we're selling these for home hi-fi.
Okay. This one is your big seller, though.
Yeah, this is definitely the thing that we make the most of. Originally, I called this like the Ogis bookshelf speaker, and a lot of people kind of laughed at this being called a bookshelf speaker. This is my answer to like a bookshelf speaker.
Right.
As you can tell, the sort of like tradition of audio design that I come from, most Western audiophiles look at and say, this guy has no idea what he's doing. The speakers are way too big.
Right.
But I come from the school of big efficient speaker, low power single-ended triode tube amp. And this is like what I consider a very small, high efficiency, partially horn loaded speaker. It's a coaxial, so it's a 2-way.
Right.
It has a compression driver on the back of a little horn that you can slightly see through this
Yeah.
mesh dust cap.
Right.
And an 8-inch woofer. There's a kind of a fun backstory on the development of this speaker, and I think it kind of speaks to the way I approach like audio design in general. People have been telling me for like years, you need a smaller speaker. Like this, all your stuff is just too big, and for so many reasons, it doesn't help you access like a large group of people. So I knew that I needed something of this approximate scale, and I knew I wanted to develop an 8-inch coaxial solution. So I started going about this the way most people go about designing a speaker. You have an objective, you set parameters that you want to achieve, and then you start looking at drivers that are available and which one can satisfy those requirements best.
Right.
Typically, that's how people design speakers, right? It's kind of like a backwards process from like, we need to be able to do this, and then, you have a lot of options that you can survey for all those parts, and you choose the best part for the job. It's a very pragmatic way of going about it.
Makes a lot of sense.
So what I always tell people is like, just go listen to stuff, and when you find something that really speaks to you, that this is what you want to hear in your work, then study that thing. And that can come down to just some component. I try to approach every listening experience with an open mind and find something in that system that I feel like I can experiment with myself. So I was kind of looking for this 8-inch full-range driver, and I remembered having this experience in Akihabara in one of these showrooms that sold a lot of like parts and DIY stuff, and they had this great 12-inch coaxial driver that I was listening to and I really liked. And I asked about it, and it was a JBL driver that was made not for hi-fi use. It was made for like an in-ceiling speaker for contractors, and a lot of great speakers that are fetishized now, historic speakers like the Altec 755, were primarily designed for in-speaker, wide-range, high-quality distributed audio systems. So they kind of explained to me in Japan at the time that like, you can't really buy this speaker from JBL. You have to kind of find it, and then you just have to basically like hack it in order to build it into a speaker for hi-fi. But they had introduced me to the speaker, and we all kind of agreed this is a really beautiful sounding speaker. So I had experimented with that. I built a bunch of speakers over the years with it, this 12-inch coaxial. And I had the thought, like, I think that there's an 8-inch version of this driver that I should try. So I kind of like on a whim, I bought the 8-inch version of this driver. And it was one of those experiences that I'm always looking for in discovering audio gear. It's just like the first enclosure that I built, the first time I tried it, it took me, less than a minute to realize like this driver is the sound that I'm after. It has this really nice classic sound. So there is like quite a significant amount of like legacy components in this driver, but that's kind of the story of the driver, and I think is indicative of how I tend to design things. Is like I find a component that really speaks to me, and then I kind of just try to figure out like, how can I use this thing?
Right.
How can I exploit this thing? How can I use this thing the way it's meant to be used, or just get some value out of it?
That's cool.
Then we've got the old super sub,
Super sub.
the Fostex FW800 HS super woofer.
Supersize me.
This is something that we've spoken about a bunch, but is another component that I feel strongly about. It's not what most people expect when they see it.
Right.
Yeah, people come in here often and they think it's just going to be like
blow you away.
Yeah, it's just going to be like a Bass Mania kind of car audio type experience in here, but it's actually a relatively subtle sub.
Right.
And I think it's in keeping with a lot of the stuff that is like quite counterintuitive for a lot of people with a certain level of understanding of audio.
Right.
A lot of people see a speaker this big and an amp this big that weighs this much. I mean, these amps weigh, these amps are very heavy. Lugging them around is a whole chore. And so people come in and you get the old, how many watts does this thing have? And, it's always fun to just like answer like 2. But yeah, I think it's kind of in keeping with that. It can play very musically, play very low frequencies, but has almost no excursion, so it's barely moving. And that's central to this kind of philosophy of speaker design as well. Low excursion, minimal cone movement, but a lot of sound, effortless sound. Yeah, I mean, we've got some stuff on the shelves that are for sale and not for sale, but we've kind of got the cartridge shelf. We've got a few vintage cartridges that are probably not for sale, but like this cool Sony XL55 Pro, not for sale, one of my reference cartridges. But mostly SPUs and some of the classic Denon DL103. These are all very iconic cartridges that are fundamental building blocks of this type of audio. This is an example of one of the newly built SPU-A. We've got some really expensive, really rare high-end SPUs, and then we've got the also wonderful entry-level number one, this guy.
SPU number one.
SPU number one, available in a elliptical and spherical tip profile.
Right.
I recommend all of them.
I haven't heard all of them, but I certainly know the number one.
They're all fun. And then we have the Western Electric 300B that we sell. These other tubes are on display here because we sell them. They're included with the kits that we sell, but we don't sell them as a standalone. And then we also rep our friends at Jupiter Condenser Company. They make incredible capacitors for whatever you need capacitors for, whether you're building a high-end souped-up custom crossover for your speakers, or you need coupling caps. Mostly sell them as coupling caps, particularly as upgrades for the single-ended triode kit amps we sell.
All right. A couple of tone arms.
Tone arm shelf, yeah, the Groove Master. This is the brand new, most people have never seen it, Ortofon AS309R, the new 12-inch Ortofon tone arm. Ortofon hasn't made any tone arms for a few years because the factory that was making them in Japan closed, and now they have a new OEM manufacturer that is, I believe, a medical devices maker, and so they're making this quite beautiful arm. I haven't heard it yet. I haven't had time to set it up. This is a vintage Dynavector. We're not Dynavector dealers, although I wouldn't mind being one. And then this Sorane arm, which visually is similar looking to a Dynavector, but has very little functionally in common with the Dynavector.
Inspired by.
But I believe it is made in the same factory that makes the Dynavector arms in Japan. And then, we just have like other kind of little doodads around. We also build speakers with the very iconic TAD compression driver and woofer. That's a TAD 2001, the 1-inch compression driver with a beryllium diaphragm and an Alnico magnet. Beautiful sounding driver. So we've been more and more building speakers with the TAD components made in Japan. Over there, you've got a bunch of random Altec microphone transformers, and the green one is the 4722 that I mentioned. The red one is another microphone input transformer that you can also use as a step-up transformer, but the pinout is different, so you can't use them interchangeably. And then we have your book on display.
My book? Oh, of course, yes, that's a legend. Yeah, right there.
And we still have some of these hats too. My wife has is my favorite clothing designer, and we made this cap that's on the shelf. We still have a few of those, so if you want a Ogis Cas Maria cap, come through.
Cool. I think we've done it.
Yeah, we did. This is the only thing we didn't talk about yet.
Very important. Right. The kit.
Yes. Sun Audio. Sun Audio is a very famous tube amp manufacturer in Japan. They've been around since the late 80s, making pretty much the same series of single-ended triode amps the entire time. 1989, I think, they first released this amp and the SV2A3. And this amp has an incredible legacy. I mean, in Japan, is regarded as absolutely in the conversation of high-end single-ended triode amps. Someone recently told me that I did not know, which is another cool thing, that Auditorium 23, who you might be familiar with, used to sell Sun Audio and Shindo as kind of like competing. And I'm sure that some Shindo fans are gonna throw a complete fit over that, but yeah, I mean, it is a great legacy brand and makes incredibly high quality products. As I was saying earlier,
So you're selling that kit.
we're selling the kit. As I was saying earlier, there's not really like a definite line in Japan between DIY and high end the same way there is here. So Sun Audio also sells a lot of boutique parts, and they sell, I assume most of what they sell are in kit form, although they also sell totally complete products. I wanted to bring in, so I'm the North American distributor of Sun Audio now. Well, sorry, Ogis is the North American distributor of Sun Audio. So we've just started bringing in our first rounds of these great tube amp kits. We sold through our first wave of them really quickly. And we also sold a limited number of workshop slots, people who could buy the amp and have a seat in our workshop, which we did here downstairs in the basement. You came through and took some photos, so you can probably put a couple of photos to show people what that looked like. But
is that going to happen again?
It will happen again, but I have some deadlines that I have to really focus on in the spring. So I'm waiting on another big order of Sun Audio stuff. And we're bringing in 3 different models this time. We're bringing in the 2A3 monoblocks, the 2A3, which is their best-selling amp, and more 300Bs. And I would love to do more of these workshops. The workshop for me was like a dream come true because, everything that I've been saying about like the cultural side of what I want to do here is like sharing this love that I have for building this gear. If I can share one thing with people, it's that whole process through a space like this. I mean, most people will come just for the experience of listening, which is something that I'm happy to share as well. But for me to have 6, and we filled the slots in the workshop with mostly people that we have pre-existing relationships with, not intentionally, but just because they are all close friends that knew they were coming in, wanted to participate in the workshop. So we sold those slots really quickly, and we were lucky to sell them to close friends. But for me to be in a room with 6 other kind of peers, new friends, whatever, and be just building tube amplifiers, that was just a dream come true for me. So I do hope to do more of that, but it is extremely time consuming. The project is like a 20 or 30 hour project, and we have to host the people and then obviously also teach them how to make them and inevitably troubleshoot some of them, which is quite time consuming as well. So I just don't have time to do that until at least next summer, 2024 summer. But we will have more kits. I do my best to support all the kit customers as necessary, and we'll definitely be doing more workshops. Just give me a little time.
Wow. This really was the tour. This was the deluxe tour.
The deluxe tour. I wouldn't have it any other way. Thanks, Steve.
All right.
Always a pleasure having you, man.
Yeah, there will be more.
Indeed.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.